As musicians, we are taught to trust recordings, to study them, copy them, imitate them, build your musicianship around them. But the moment you look at history, acoustics, and neuroscience that exists behind that listening, a different picture emerges. So recordings aren't neutral windows into sound. They're engineered artifacts. They filter, compress, and pre-interpret the musical world long before it reaches your ear. And when the sound is already interpreted for you, your brain never develops the internal stability that great musicians once relied on. Before microphones, compressors, and digital audio workstations, musicians had no choice but to build their hearing from the inside out. Mozart, Bach, Beethoven, they didn't become masters because they lacked technology. They became masters because their musicianship was generative, not reactive. And that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about the active generative ear training and not reactive ear training. So these composers, they didn't copy sound, they produced it internally. That used to be how we taught counterpoint. Counterpoint was always ear first. But now it's a numbers game. It's a rules game. It's an intellectual game. And that has its benefits too. But modern ear training flipped the relationship between the ear and how we hear. It made musicians dependent on playback instead of perception, on transcription instead of audiation, and on reacting instead of predicting. And that shift is subtle and visible and rarely questioned, but it's the root of why so many musicians plateau today. So today I want to expose that problem just a little bit. It shows why recordings distort the learning process, how the brain forms stable musical categories, and why internal generation is a reliable path to deep musicianship. Most importantly, it reveals the hidden trap inside transcription itself, the way the brain confidently interprets what it expects to hear when the internal model becomes a little unstable. So if you've ever felt like your ear training wasn't sticking, or that your musicianship wasn't growing as fast as your effort deserved, the reason isn't you. It's the method. And once you understand where modern ear training is going astray a little bit, you'll see why the solution isn't more transcription or simply more performing. It's building the internal reference that makes transcription meaningful in the first place. So most musicians hear the same advice, if you want a better ear, transcribe recordings. And transcription can absolutely be valuable. But there is a deeper issue underneath modern ear training that rarely gets discussed. Recordings are not neutral reproductions of sound. They're mediated listening experiences. As theorists like Pierre Schaeffer and Jonathan Stern point out, recorded audio is shaped by microphones, compression, EQ, mixing, mastering, and playback systems long before it ever reaches a listener. That doesn't make recordings fake or even unuseful, and it doesn't make modern productions bad. But it does mean most musicians are training primarily through sound that has already been heavily interpreted and perceptually organized for them. And this is fine. Commercial recordings are designed for emotional impact, clarity, translation across devices, and aesthetic presentation, not necessarily for developing internal hearing. Now, over time, that distinction may matter more than most musicians realize. Before recording technology existed, think about it, musicians developed almost entirely through live sound, memory, singing, imitation, improvisation, and internal hearing. Think about Mozart. He famously reproduced Allegri's Miserere from memory after hearing it performed. Now, this was a piece that was not meant to be notated, not meant to be sent out to the general public. It was a sacred piece. It was meant to be kept within the chapel. But he was able to do it. This is an extraordinary demonstration of internal musical representation. Now, another example, Bach. He could improvise complex multi-voice fugues in real time. He was able to internally track several musical lines simultaneously. And Beethoven continued composing after severe hearing loss, suggesting that advanced musicianship can become deeply internalized rather than purely dependent on external input. These musicians, they were not better simply because they lacked technology. That's an oversimplification. But their environments demanded unusually strong internal generation, memory, prediction, audiation, and mental manipulation of musical structures. The music had to live somewhere before it could be written down. And often, that place was the mind itself. So, live acoustic sound and recorded sound are not perceived in exactly the same way. Acoustic sound exists as a physical event in real space. It has natural overtone relationships, spatial localization, dynamic interaction, and environmental coherence. It mixes with the environment that you're in. Researchers like Hermann von Helmholtz, James J. Gibson, and Albert Bregman, they all explore different aspects of how humans organize and interpret complex auditory environments. Modern recordings, they introduce another layer: engineering mediation, compression, EQ, stereo imaging, reverb, microphone placement, mastering, and playback translation. They all influence what's become perceptually prominent. These tools are musically powerful and artistically valuable, but they also partially guide the listener's perceptual organization process. The listener still performs auditory organization, but the production has already shaped much of the perceptual landscape in advance. And that may subtly reduce the amount of active internal processing required from the musician. And that is really the key issue here that we're talking about. So we know that modern neuroscience increasingly views a brain not as a passive receiver of information, but as a predictive system. Some of you have been taking my ear training course or my composing hour course, and you told me that you're listening to a song you've never heard before, and somehow you're able to predict the next thing that was about to come. That's a predictive system. It's not magic. Researchers like David Huron, Patricia Kuhl, Nina Kraus, and Carl Friston, they all point toward versions of the same principle. The brain learns by building predictive internal models from repeated patterns. Audiation works the same way. Strong musicians are not merely reacting to notes after they hear them. They're continuously predicting, anticipating, and internally generating musical relationships in real time. This is one reason why passive repetition alone often produces weaker results than active internal engagement. Now, I'm not saying other methods, that ear training in general doesn't produce results, but there's a possibility that there's options that produce greater results, right? So when listening becomes entirely externalized, replaying recordings repeatedly without internally generating the material, this is an entirely externalized experience. The learner may improve recognition without necessarily strengthening deep internal audiation. And when perceptual cues are dense, ambiguous, or heavily processed, expectation can strongly shape what the listener believes they are hearing. As Diana Deutsch's work on auditory illusion, she demonstrates that perception is not a simple mirror of reality. The brain actively constructs the listening experience. I've experienced this. Some stories I'll tell you another time. But this means that ear training is not just about exposure. It is about building accurate and stable internal predictive models. So here's something I like to call the Beethoven Principle. Beethoven forces us to rethink what musicianship actually depends on. By the time his hearing deteriorated severely, decades of composition, performance, improvisation, and listening had already built an extraordinarily stable internal model of music. He lost much of the sensory input, but he retained the internal framework. As Oliver Sacks observed in Musicophilia, the human brain can sustain vivid musical imagery even in the absence of external sound. Beethoven's later works suggest that advanced musicianship ultimately depends not only on hearing sound externally, but on the ability to internally generate, evaluate, and manipulate musical structure. So the internal model, it becomes the real instrument. There are limits to reactive listening. Modern musicians, they often develop extremely strong reactive listening while underdeveloping generative hearing. And those are not the same skill. Reactive listening means identifying and responding to external sound. Generative hearing means internally producing, predicting, and organizing sound before it occurs. So transcription can absolutely help develop musicianship, but transcription alone does not automatically build stable audiation, especially when the learner becomes dependent on replay, visual confirmation, or external references to hold the music for them. Technology makes musical access easier than ever. We know this, but easier access can sometimes reduce the amount of mental retention, prediction, internal reconstruction. All of this is normally required and demanded from the listener. When you have too much access, you can reduce all that. And those internal processes are precisely what historically produce strong ears. My own flawless method, it's built around strengthening generative hearing rather than only reactive recognition. It's solidly based on so much research that I did. I mean, hours and hours a day for many, many years. The goal is not simply to identify intervals faster. The goal is to develop stable internal categories strong enough to predict, retain, manipulate, and internally generate musical sound. This approach, it actually draws from several traditions. Edwin Gordon's Audiation, Kodali's internalization through singing, David Huron's predictive cognition, Mark Lemond's embodied music perception. We're not trying to replace listening. We are trying to prevent musicianship from becoming dependent on external playback alone. That's it. I'm not replacing anything. We're adding to it. It's not so much what you take away, it's what you add that matters. And reactive listening alone is not as good as reactive listening and generative listening. That's all I'm suggesting here. Because ultimately, the strongest ears are not merely reactive, they are generative. Modern technology, it gives us an extraordinary access to music. But access is not the same thing as internalization. A musician can listen constantly and still struggle to internally generate even simple musical relationships without external support. That's the central problem that I'm exploring right now. Not whether recordings are bad, not whether transcription is useless, but whether modern musicians have gradually outsourced too much of the internal work that earlier generations were forced to develop themselves. Because deep musicianship does not come only from hearing sound. It comes from learning to internally generate it.